This is an extraordinary story about how a stray dog saved the lives of 12 American soldiers in Afghanistan. A narrative that shows us how the Lord God works in mysterious ways, sending protection through the most unexpected creatures when we least expect it. Before we begin this exciting journey, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment letting us know what time you're watching this video. Your participation is very important to us. It was a hot September morning in Afghanistan when Sergeant Mark Thompson awoke to the familiar sound of helicopters circling over Forward Base Echo. For 6 months, he had commanded a reconnaissance unit of 12 American soldiers, all brave young men who had left their families to serve their country on a humanitarian stabilization mission in the mountainous region near the Pakistani border. Echo Base was small, strategically located, allowing it to monitor the supply routes used to deliver medical aid and food to isolated villages in the region. The unit's primary mission was to ensure that humanitarian convoys reached the civilians who depended on this vital assistance safely. That particular morning, Thompson received orders from Central Command to investigate reports of suspicious activity near the village of Khost Matun, where a school had recently been rebuilt with American funds. Locals had reported strange movements during the night, and it was crucial to check on the children and teachers. Corporal James Rodriguez, a 22-year-old from Texas, was preparing his equipment when something caught his eye. A small thin dog had appeared out of nowhere near the base entrance. The animal had brown and white fur, floppy ears, and an intelligent gaze that seemed to be trying to communicate something important. "Sergeant, there's a dog out here," Rodriguez said, pointing to the animal that was keeping a respectful distance from the soldiers. Thompson looked out the window and saw the dog sitting patiently, as if waiting for something specific. "He's probably looking for food." "We can't feed every stray in the area, Rodriguez, but there was something different about this dog." Private Williams, the youngest of the group at just 19, had grown up on a farm in Kansas and had a special way with animals. He approached the dog carefully, and it showed neither fear nor aggression. "He seems to be trying to tell us something, Sergeant," Williams observed. "My grandfather always said that animals sense things we can't." The dog remained near the base throughout the day, always alert, always watching. As the unit prepared for the afternoon patrol that would take them to the village, the animal began barking insistently, running in circles and always returning to the same spot near the main gate. Thompson, a veteran of 2 previous tours in Iraq, had learned to trust his instincts. Something about the dog's behavior bothered him, but he couldn't pinpoint what exactly. He decided to postpone the patrol for a few hours and send a reconnaissance drone first. Drone footage revealed that the usual route was apparently clear. There were no obvious signs of danger on the road leading to the village. Even so, Thompson felt a knot in his stomach. The dog kept barking in the same direction, always at the same spot on the road. "Sergeant, what if we take the alternate route today?" suggested Corporal Martinez, an explosives expert who had befriended the dog during the day. "It doesn't hurt to be extra careful." The alternative route was longer and more rugged, but offered better cover and multiple escape options if necessary. Thompson considered the suggestion for a few minutes. It was a difficult decision. The main route was faster and would allow them to reach the village before nightfall. But something about the dog's persistent behavior gave him pause. "Very well, let's take the alternative route," he finally decided. Better safe than sorry. The dog seemed to understand the decision and immediately calmed down, following the unit to the vehicles. Williams opened the Humvee door, and the animal jumped inside without hesitation, as if it knew exactly what it was doing. The journey along the alternative route took almost 2 hours. The terrain was uneven and required careful driving, especially with the heavy vehicles carrying medical and educational supplies for the village school. The dog remained calm throughout the journey, resting beside Williams like a seasoned companion. When they finally arrived in Khost Matun, they were warmly welcomed by the villagers, especially the children who ran to meet the American soldiers. The American military presence was viewed positively by the community, who knew the soldiers brought security, medical supplies, and helped to keep the school running. The school teacher, a middle-aged man named Ahmad, greeted Thompson with a relieved smile. "We were worried when you didn't show up at your usual time," he said in halting English. "We expect you every day." Thompson explained the slight delay and asked about the reported suspicious movements. Ahmad frowned and looked around before approaching. "Last night, strange men came along the main road," he whispered. "They dug holes in the asphalt and left before dawn. I wanted to warn you, but we don't have a radio." Thompson's heart raced. Potholes in the main road meant only one thing: improvised explosive devices. If they had followed the usual route, the entire unit could have been hit. The dog had somehow detected the danger and tried to alert them. Thompson immediately radioed the base and reported the information. A team specializing in explosives disposal was dispatched to the area. And 3 powerful devices were found exactly where Ahmad had described, buried along the main road in locations that would have caused catastrophic damage to American vehicles. "My God," Rodriguez muttered. "If it weren't for that dog." Williams petted the animal, which remained calm but alert. "How did you know?" he asked softly. "How did you know it was dangerous?" While the disarmament team worked on the main road, Thompson's unit continued its mission in the village. They distributed medical supplies, checked on the condition of the school, and met with local leaders to discuss future development projects. The dog remained close to the soldiers throughout the visit, being especially kind to the village children, who quickly took a shine to their new 4-legged friend. A little girl of about 8 approached Williams and asked if the dog had a name. Williams looked at the animal and smiled. "How about Guardian?" he suggested. "He protected us today." The girl repeated the name several times, trying to pronounce it correctly, and soon all the children were calling the dog Guardian. The animal seemed to enjoy the attention and the new name, wagging its tail whenever it was called. When it was time to return to base, Guardian naturally followed the soldiers to their vehicles. There was no doubt that he was now part of the unit, at least temporarily. During the return trip, Thompson reflected on the day's events. From his military experience, he had learned that survival often depended on small details and intuitions that could not be explained logically. Guardian's instinct had saved 12 American lives that day. Back at Echo Base, the story of the heroic dog quickly spread among the other soldiers. Guardian was welcomed as a true member of the unit, given a generous portion of food and a warm place to sleep in the barracks. That night, Thompson wrote a detailed report on the day's events, giving special credit to Guardian's behavior, which had alerted the unit to the danger on the main route. The report would be sent to higher command and eventually reach the soldiers' families, who would learn how a stray dog had saved their sons, husbands, and brothers. Private Peters, the unit's communications specialist, suggested they try to learn more about Guardian's origins. "Maybe he belonged to someone in the area," he said. "It would be important to know if any family is looking for him." Over the next few days, Thompson authorized an informal investigation into the dog's origins. They visited several nearby villages, showed them photos of Guardian, and asked if anyone recognized him. Surprisingly, several people reported seeing the animal roaming the area for weeks, but no one knew where he had originally come from. An elder from a nearby village told an interesting story. He said he had seen Guardian a few weeks earlier, barking persistently near an area later discovered to be an abandoned ammunition storage site. Local authorities had been alerted, and the hazardous material was safely removed. "This dog has a special gift," the elder said through an interpreter. "He senses danger before it happens. In our culture, we believe that some animals are sent to protect the good." The old man's story made Thompson think even more deeply about Guardian. Could the dog really have a special instinct for detecting explosives or dangerous situations? He decided to consult a military dog specialist at the next opportunity. Meanwhile, Guardian adapted perfectly to the military routine. He woke up with the soldiers, followed morning drills while maintaining a respectful distance, and was always present during patrols. Most importantly, he seemed to have developed his own warning system. Whenever something bothered him, he would position himself in front of the soldiers and stare intently in the direction of the potential threat. A week after the incident on the main road, Thompson's unit received orders to escort another humanitarian convoy, this time carrying vaccines and medical equipment to 3 different villages. It was a longer mission that would require camping overnight in relatively unfamiliar territory. Guardian seemed to understand the importance of the mission and remained especially alert during the preparations. Williams had become the dog's unofficial caretaker, and noticed that he was more restless than usual. "Sergeant Guardian is acting strange again," Williams reported. "He keeps looking at the mountains to the north and moaning softly." Thompson grabbed his binoculars and scanned the area that held the dog's attention. He couldn't see anything obvious, but his previous experience with Guardian had led him to take extra precautions. He requested additional aerial reconnaissance of the area before departing. Aerial reconnaissance revealed no immediate threats, but drone operators noticed some movement in the mountains that could have been wildlife or people moving about. Thompson decided to proceed with the mission, but kept Guardian especially close and paid extra attention to any changes in its behavior. The first stop was successful. Chinois' village gratefully received the vaccines and medical equipment, and the local doctor, trained with American assistance, immediately began organizing a vaccination campaign for the children. Guardian remained calm throughout the visit, playing gently with the local children and even allowing some to pet him. The second stop also went smoothly. In the village of Paktia, American soldiers helped install new medical equipment at the local clinic and trained staff on its proper use. The project was part of a broader American assistance program aimed at improving healthcare in remote rural areas. It was during the journey to the third village that Guardian began, showing clear signs of agitation. The dog refused to enter the vehicle and began barking in the direction of a narrow mountain pass they would need to cross to reach their destination. "He's doing it again," Rodriguez observed. "Remember what happened the last time he acted like this?" Thompson stopped the convoy and ordered everyone to remain in their vehicles while he assessed the situation. Guardian ran to the entrance of the pass, barked a few times, and then ran back to the soldiers, repeating the pattern several times. "Corporal Martinez, get out the metal detector and check the area," Thompson ordered. "Guardian is clearly trying to tell us something." Martinez and two other soldiers carefully advanced toward the passage, using metal detectors and following strict security protocols. After 20 minutes of meticulous searching, they found evidence that someone had disturbed the soil at several points along the passage. "Sergeant, there's definitely something buried here," Martinez radioed. "Multiple metal signals at strategic locations." Thompson immediately requested an explosives disposal team and established a security perimeter. Guardian remained uneasy until the team arrived. As if aware the danger was still present, the defusal team discovered 5 improvised explosive devices buried along the pass, all connected and set to detonate when heavy vehicles passed over them. The combined blast would have been devastating, possibly wiping out the entire convoy. "This dog saved our lives again," Thompson said, petting Guardian gratefully. "There's no other explanation for it." Safely removing the explosives took several hours, during which soldiers waited in defensive positions. Guardian finally calmed down, only when the last device was disarmed and removed from the area. The third village was reached via a safer alternative route, and the medical supply delivery was successfully completed. The locals were especially grateful when they learned that American soldiers had risked their own lives to ensure the medicine reached them. That night, camped in a secure defensive position, the soldiers of Thompson's unit gathered around a small campfire to discuss the day's events. Guardian lay beside Williams, finally relaxed after the tense day. "Do you think he can actually sniff out explosives?" Peters asked. "Or is it just a coincidence?" "Twice is no coincidence," Thompson replied. "This dog definitely has some kind of special ability. I've seen dogs trained to detect explosives, but I've never seen a stray with this natural ability." Martinez, who had considerable experience with explosives, offered a theory. "Maybe he can detect the chemicals used in explosives," he suggested. "Some animals have a much more sensitive sense of smell than we do. It's possible he's picking up odors we can't detect." Williams, who had developed a special bond with Guardian, had a different perspective. "I grew up in the country and saw animals acting strangely before storms, earthquakes, even before bad people came to the property," he said. "My grandmother always said that animals can sense things beyond our comprehension." Regardless of the explanation, everyone agreed that Guardian had become an essential part of the unit. Thompson decided to submit an official report requesting that the dog be formally adopted as the unit's mascot and a potential candidate for specialized military training. Over the next few weeks, Guardian accompanied the unit on several smaller missions. His presence became comforting to the soldiers, who had learned to trust their instincts. The dog never gave false alarms. Whenever he showed concern, there was legitimate reason for concern. On one occasion, Guardian alerted the unit to an explosive device hidden near a bridge they needed to cross to reach a dedication ceremony for a new school built with American funds. On another occasion, he detected people hiding in an abandoned building who were planning an ambush. Guardian's reputation spread beyond Echo Base. Other units began asking for advice on working with local dogs, and some commanders asked Thompson to share his experiences in intelligence reports higher. Command was so impressed with Guardian's performance that they decided to send a military dog expert to evaluate his abilities. Sergeant Major Patricia Collins, a 15-year veteran of military canine training, arrived at Echo Base in a special helicopter. "I've heard incredible stories about this dog," Collins told Thompson. "If he truly has the skills described in the reports, he could be valuable to many units in the region." Collins spent 3 days observing Guardian and testing his reactions to different situations. She was genuinely impressed by the animal's intelligence and instincts. "This dog is extraordinary," Collins reported. "He has had no formal training, but his natural abilities are superior to those of many dogs who have undergone months of specialized training. I recommend he be retained with this unit and receive further training to maximize his potential." Thompson was relieved to learn that Guardian could remain with the unit. The soldiers had developed a deep bond with the animal, and parting with him would have been emotionally difficult for everyone. Guardian's further training began immediately. Collins worked with him for 2 weeks, refining his natural instincts and teaching him basic commands that would help him better communicate with soldiers. The dog proved to be an exceptional student, learning quickly and always eager to please. During this training period, Thompson's unit was assigned a particularly important mission. They were to escort a convoy of emergency medical supplies to a remote mountainous region where there had been reports of a disease outbreak among children. Time was critical, and the quickest route led through known dangerous territory. Guardian participated in mission briefings, remaining quiet and attentive as Thompson explained the details to the soldiers. Collins noted that the dog seemed to understand the seriousness of the situation, remaining especially focused whenever maps were shown or routes discussed. "He really seems to understand what's going on," Collins commented. "I've never seen an animal so attuned to military operations." The mission began before dawn to take advantage of the cooler hours of the day and minimize exposure to open terrain. Guardian was clearly alert from the start, positioning himself in the front seat of the lead vehicle, where he could observe the road ahead. For the first 2 hours of the journey, everything proceeded normally. The mountainous landscape was stunning, with snow-capped peaks in the background and green valleys dotted with small villages. Guardian remained calm but vigilant, occasionally shifting his position to look in different directions. It was when they entered a particularly secluded area that Guardian began to show signs of restlessness. He began panting more rapidly and kept staring at a rocky outcropping to the right of the road. "Sergeant, Guardian is getting nervous again," Williams reported. Thompson ordered the convoy to slow down while he scanned the area with binoculars. The rocky outcrop offered a perfect ambush position, but he detected no movement or obvious signs of danger. Guardian suddenly began barking intensely toward the rocks, something he rarely did during operations. His behavior was clearly different from his previous reactions to explosives. This time, he seemed to be alerting to people, not devices. "All vehicles, stop immediately," Thompson radioed. "Guardian is detecting something in the rocks to our right." Within seconds of the convoy stopping, shots began to be fired from the rocky emplacement. Guardian had detected a prepared ambush and alerted the unit in time for them to deploy defensively. American soldiers responded quickly, using their vehicles as cover and establishing coordinated firing positions. Their superior firepower and training soon dominated the situation, forcing the attackers to retreat to more distant positions in the mountains. "Guardian saved our lives once again," Martinez said as he checked to make sure everyone was unharmed. "If we hadn't stopped when he warned us, we would have driven straight into the death zone." During the brief skirmish, Guardian remained calm but alert, positioning himself close to the wounded soldiers and seeming to understand that he had to stay out of the way while they did their job. Fortunately, only 2 soldiers suffered minor injuries, nothing that compromised the mission. The convoy managed to continue along an alternate route and arrived at the disease-stricken village a few hours later than planned. Medical supplies were successfully delivered, and the local doctor immediately began treating the sick children with the medicines brought by the Americans. Guardian was welcomed as a hero by the villagers, especially after learning how he had protected the soldiers who brought much-needed medical aid. Children, even those who were sick, smiled when they saw the dog, and several tried to give him small treats from the little food they had. "This dog is an angel, sent to protect those who do good," the village leader said through an interpreter. "Our entire village is indebted to him and to the brave soldiers who risked their lives to help us." During the return trip, Thompson reflected on how Guardian had changed the dynamic of his unit. Not only had the dog saved their lives multiple times, but he had also become a symbol of hope and protection for all the soldiers. His presence had boosted the unit's confidence and strengthened the bonds between the men. Collins, who had witnessed the day's events, was finalizing his report for Guardian. "This animal should be studied," he told Thompson. "Its natural abilities could help develop better training programs for military dogs in the future." A few weeks later, Guardian was formally adopted as the unit's official mascot and given his own military ID. Williams was assigned as his official caretaker, a responsibility he accepted with pride and dedication. Guardian's story eventually reached American media outlets, where it was presented as an inspiring example of the special bond between soldiers and animals in conflict zones. Families across the country sent letters and care packages, not only to the soldiers, but especially to Guardian. One such letter came from a 7-year-old girl in Oregon who had heard Guardian's story on television. She wrote, "Dear Guardian, thank you for taking care of our soldiers. My daddy is in the army too, and I hope he has a special dog like you to protect him." Thompson read the letter aloud to the entire unit, and there wasn't a dry eye in the barracks. Guardian, as if understanding he was being praised, wagged his tail and approached each soldier for a pat. Months passed, and Guardian continued to serve with distinction. He saved the unit from 3 more potential ambushes, detected 8 improvised explosive devices, and even helped locate a wounded soldier who had gotten lost during a sandstorm. His reputation spread throughout the region, and other military units began searching for local dogs with similar skills. An informal canine recruitment program was established, based on techniques developed by Collins during his time with Guardian. When it was time for Thompson's unit to return to the United States, the most difficult question was deciding what to do with Guardian. The dog had become so integrated into the unit that separating him from the soldiers would be traumatic for everyone involved. Williams proposed a solution. "Sergeant, what if I officially adopted Guardian and brought him with me to Kansas?" he suggested. "My family has a large farm where he would be happy, and he deserved a peaceful retirement after all he's done for us." Thompson thought it was an excellent idea, but there were significant bureaucratic complications involved in importing a military animal from a conflict zone. Fortunately, the Guardian story had caught the attention of influential people in the United States who were willing to help with the process. A non-profit organization dedicated to the welfare of military animals offered to pay for all the veterinary exams, vaccinations, and legal procedures required to bring Guardian to the United States. The media followed the entire process, transforming the dog's journey into an inspiring national story. After 3 months of paperwork and procedures, Guardian finally arrived at the Kansas City airport, where he was greeted by Williams and his family. The reunion was emotional, with Guardian clearly recognizing his military caregiver and showing genuine joy at being reunited. The Williams family farm proved to be the perfect home for Guardian. He had acres of space to explore, other animals to keep him company, and a loving family who understood his importance. Most importantly, Williams maintained regular contact with the other members of his former unit, organizing annual reunions where Guardian was always the guest of honor. During these meetings, soldiers shared stories about how Guardian had changed their lives. Thompson, now retired from active duty, often spoke of how the dog had taught his unit the importance of intuition and mutual trust. Guardian didn't just save our physical lives, he said. He taught us that protection comes in many forms, and that sometimes the most unlikely heroes appear when we need them most. Rodriguez, who had been the first to notice Guardian that fateful morning at Echo Base, became a veterinarian after his military service, inspired in part by his experience with the heroic dog. He often told Guardian's story to his patients and their families, using it as an example of how animals can be incredible partners in protection and healing. Martinez continued his military career and eventually became an explosives disposal instructor. He always included a section on detection dogs in his courses, crediting Guardian as his first introduction to the value of animals in security operations. Peters, the communications specialist, maintained a personal blog documenting Guardian's post-service adventures on Williams' farm. The stories and photos of the dog enjoying his retirement brought joy to thousands of people around the world who had followed his story. 5 years after returning to the United States, Guardian was still strong and active. He had become a local celebrity in Kansas, frequently visiting schools where Williams would tell his story to captivated children. The dog seemed to understand his importance, always behaving perfectly during these presentations and allowing hundreds of children to pet him. During one of these school visits, a child asked Williams how Guardian knew when danger was approaching. Williams smiled and replied, "Some people are born with special gifts for music or math. Guardian was born with the gift of protecting good people. He simply knew our mission was to help others, and he wanted to be a part of that." Guardian's story eventually inspired a best-selling children's book titled The Dog Who Knew, written by a veteran military journalist who had covered the original story. A percentage of the book's proceeds were donated to organizations that help military veterans and war animals. A film based on Guardian's story was also produced, with consultation from Thompson, Williams, and other members of the original unit to ensure historical accuracy. The film became a family hit, inspiring a new generation of Americans about the value of military service and the importance of protecting those who cannot protect themselves. On his 10th birthday in the United States, Guardian was honored at a special ceremony at the Pentagon. At 14, he was still in good health and clearly enjoyed the attention. High-ranking military officials, including generals who had read his original reports, attended to pay tribute to the dog who had become a symbol of courage and protection. During the ceremony, it was announced that a new military canine training program would be established in Guardian's honor. The Guardian program would be dedicated to identifying and training dogs with exceptional natural threat detection abilities. Williams, now graying but still strong, held Guardian throughout the ceremony. The dog, despite his advanced age, remained alert and dignified, as if he understood the importance of the moment. His fur had grayed around his nose, but his eyes retained the same piercing intelligence that had saved so many lives years ago. "Guardian represents the best of both worlds," General Morrison said during his speech. "He combines American loyalty and courage with the natural wisdom we sometimes forget to value. He reminds us that protection comes in many forms and that we must always be open to unexpected help." After the ceremony, Guardian had the opportunity to meet some of the dogs being trained in the new program. Even at his advanced age, he showed interest in the younger animals, as if approving of the continuation of his legacy. Thompson, now working as a security consultant for humanitarian organizations, frequently told Guardian's story at international conferences. His message was always the same. In a world filled with advanced technology, sometimes the most effective solutions come from the simplest and most unexpected sources. The story gained new relevance when other American military units around the world began reporting similar experiences, with local animals demonstrating exceptional protective abilities. A dog in Syria alerted soldiers to an impending mortar attack. Another in the Philippines detected smugglers attempting to smuggle dangerous supplies into a humanitarian base. Each of these stories was compared to Guardian's original experience, and a formal protocol was developed for evaluating and integrating local animals with military potential. The protocol included strict ethical guidelines to ensure the animals were treated with respect and proper care. Guardian became the standard model for this program. Military veterinarians studied his diet, exercise and care routine at Williams's farm to develop best practices for the well-being of retired military animals. One of the most interesting findings was that Guardian retained his detection abilities even in retirement. Williams reported several occasions when the dog alerted to problems on the farm, from predators threatening livestock to equipment leaking fuel that could have caused fires. He never stopped being a protector. Williams noted during an interview, "It's like it's in his fundamental nature to care for others. He just transferred his protection from the soldiers to our family and property." This Guardian trait inspired research into canine psychology and how some dogs develop such strong protective instincts. American universities began studying the genetics and training of dogs with exceptional detection abilities. One of the most fascinating studies was conducted by the University of Texas, where researchers attempted to replicate the conditions that had allowed Guardian to develop his abilities. They worked with stray dogs from various regions, testing their reactions to different stimuli and stressful situations. While none of the dogs tested demonstrated quite the same level of skill as Guardian, several showed significant potential. Some were eventually adopted by military families, while others entered specialized training programs. Guardian became the symbolic grandfather of a new generation of American military dogs. His story was told at military academies as an example of how flexibility and openness to unconventional solutions can save lives and improve missions. During his final years, Guardian enjoyed a quiet life on the farm, surrounded by the love of the Williams family and visited regularly by his former military comrades. He maintained a healthy routine, waking early to patrol the property and sleeping on warm Kansas afternoons under his favorite tree. Williams carefully documented Guardian's final years, keeping a detailed diary of his activities and health. These notes became invaluable to veterinarians working with other retired military animals, providing insights into how to keep senior dogs active and happy. One warm summer afternoon, when Guardian was 15, he was lounging in his favorite spot on the porch when special visitors arrived. Thompson, Rodriguez, Martinez, and Peters had gathered for their annual visit. But this time they brought their families. The children of former soldiers were thrilled to finally meet the famous Guardian in person. They had grown up hearing stories about the heroic dog, and now they could see him with their own eyes. Guardian, even at his advanced age, stood up to greet each child individually, allowing them to pet him and patiently posing for photos. "Daddy, did he really save your life?" Rodriguez's 8-year-old daughter asked. Rodriguez knelt beside Guardian and gently stroked his gray head. "He saved us all, darling. And not just once, but many times. Guardian is a true hero." During this meeting, the veterans discussed how their experience with Guardian had influenced their post-military lives. Each of them had, in some way, incorporated the lessons learned from the dog into their civilian careers and family relationships. Thompson had become an advocate for animal therapy programs for veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. "Guardian taught me that healing can come from unexpected sources," he explained. "Now I work to connect grieving veterans with animals who can offer the same kind of support Guardian gave us." Rodriguez, as a veterinarian, frequently donated his services to organizations that cared for retired military animals. His particular interest was in senior detection dogs who required specialized care to maintain their quality of life. Martinez had become an instructor at a military academy, where he regularly included Guardian's story in his lectures on situational awareness and the importance of paying attention to all elements, of the operational environment. Peters used his communication skills to maintain a website dedicated to the story of Guardian and other heroic military animals. The site became a popular resource for military families and schools looking to teach children about courage and sacrifice. Williams, as Guardian's caretaker, had become something of an expert in caring for retired military animals. He frequently received calls from other families who had adopted military dogs, seeking advice on how to help their new companions adjust to civilian life. During the winter, following that special reunion, Guardian began to show signs of aging more rapidly. He still maintained his daily routine, but slept more and moved less quickly. Williams noticed that the dog seemed to be reflecting on his memories, sometimes staring blankly into the distance, as if thinking of times past. On a cold March morning, Guardian didn't get up for his usual morning patrol. Williams found the dog resting peacefully on his bed, breathing softly but clearly weak. The local veterinarian was called and confirmed that Guardian was simply reaching the natural end of a long and well-lived life. Thompson and the other veterans were immediately notified and made it to the farm to spend his final days with his heroic companion. Guardian seemed to recognize each of them, wagging his tail weakly whenever he heard their familiar voices. "He's waiting for us," Williams observed. "He wants to say a proper goodbye." During those final days, the men took turns telling Guardian stories, reminiscing about their adventures together and thanking him for all the times he had saved their lives. The dog remained alert when possible, as if listening and approving of each shared memory. On a quiet afternoon, with all his human companions around him, Guardian closed his eyes for the last time. He departed peacefully, surrounded by the love and gratitude of the men whose lives he had protected and transformed. Guardian's funeral was a full military ceremony, with honors rendered by representatives of every unit that had benefited from the canine training program established in his honor. Soldiers came from bases across the country to pay their final respects to the dog who had become a legend. Guardian was buried on Williams' farm, under his favorite tree, with a simple but elegant headstone that read, "Guardian Hero, Protector, Faithful Friend. He saved those who saved others." The ceremony was broadcast live to American military bases around the world, where soldiers paused their activities to observe a moment of silence in Guardian's honor. Many of these soldiers had never met Guardian personally, but his story had become part of American military lore. After the funeral, a memorial fund was established in Guardian's honor to support military dog research and welfare programs for retired war animals. The fund received donations from active duty military personnel, veterans, and civilians across the country who had been touched by the heroic dog story. Williams's farm became an informal pilgrimage site for those interested in American military history. Williams was initially hesitant to open the property to visitors, but eventually established monthly tours where he told the Guardian's full story to small groups. During these tours, Williams always ended at Guardian's grave, where he shared his final reflection on the meaning of the heroic dog. Guardian taught us that heroism doesn't require formal training or sophisticated equipment. Sometimes the most effective protection comes simply from a genuine desire to care for others. Years after Guardian's death, his story continued to inspire new generations of American service members. Military academies incorporated case studies based on his exploits into curricula on leadership and decision-making. The central lesson was always the importance of remaining open to unexpected help and trusting instincts when conventional logic fails. The Guardian program, established in his honor, expanded to include partnerships with American universities studying animal behavior and canine psychology. Researchers worked to better understand how some dogs develop exceptional protective abilities, hoping to improve selection and training methods. One of the most significant findings was that dogs like Guardian often came from traumatic backgrounds where they had developed heightened survival instincts. This information led to the development of programs that specifically sought out stray animals in conflict zones, offering them opportunities to use their natural abilities to protect others. Guardian's story also inspired changes in U.S. military policies regarding animals in operational zones. New guidelines were established to facilitate the adoption of animals that demonstrated useful skills, officially recognizing the value they could add to military missions. 10 years after his death, Guardian was still remembered in annual ceremonies at American military bases around the world. His story had become part of the military's oral tradition, passed down from veterans to recruits, as an example of unexpected courage and the importance of protecting those who serve. Thompson, now in his 60s, continued to visit Guardian's grave annually on the anniversary of his first encounter with the dog. During these solitary visits, he reflected on how a stray animal had changed not only his life, but the lives of all the soldiers fortunate enough to know him. Guardian reminded us that heroism comes in many forms, Thompson would say to himself during these visits. It showed us that sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply caring enough about others to alert them to danger, even when you yourself may be at risk. Guardian's legacy continues through the dogs trained in the program established in his honor. Many of these animals have served with distinction in operations around the world, saving countless lives and continuing the tradition of protection that Guardian began. Most importantly, Guardian had taught a lasting lesson about the nature of American heroism, that true strength comes not from weapons or technology, but from the will to protect and serve others, regardless of how small or insignificant one may seem. His story continued to be told because it represented the best American values: courage in the face of danger, dedication to service, and the fundamental belief that every life has value and deserves protection. Guardian had demonstrated these values without words, through simple but profoundly meaningful actions. And so Guardian's story teaches us that the Lord God works through all his creatures to protect those who serve with honor and dedication. Guardian represented divine providence in action, showing that protection can come from the humblest sources when our hearts are open to receive it. His legacy continued through the dogs trained in his program, saving countless lives and perpetuating the lesson that true heroism stems from genuine love for others. Guardian demonstrated that no matter how small or insignificant we may seem in the eyes of the world, when the Lord calls us to protect and serve, each of us can make a difference in the lives of others. And so ends this moving story of faith, courage, and divine protection, manifested through a simple street dog who became an American hero.